So this is ShoeMaker Pro, the current customer release version, and you'll notice slightly difference to some of the other Delcam products in that we have this library area at the bottom of the screen. And this library changes depending upon the button we choose here. So at the moment we have the last library created. So as I just mentioned, we would import the scan data, and we can convert scan data into this format in ShoeMaker Pro. And that can then be saved in the library. I can double click any of these lasts, and that's the start point for my design. So let me jump forward to style lines. So with style lines, what I do is I sketch the outline of the design using these curves. All the curves I create are projected onto the last, so I can't create anything which is off the last like I can in PowerShape. So every time I click the mouse, we're sketching on the last itself. We just do something which is very, very basic design. Once I've sketched curves, I can edit them, so I can pull the points around and make changes to the points if I wish to. I can also select all those curves and I can make a mirror to the opposite side. This mirror is a linked mirror, meaning that if I change one side, the other side will automatically update. Okay? If I undo and redo that. Okay, now also, as well as being able to sketch these style line curves directly, another function which Graham mentioned, which is very important to shoe designers, is the ability to start from a sketch. So I can actually load in a JPEG image. So this is an image which could have been created by the shoe designer using pencils, and we could have scanned it in. It could have been created using maybe Adobe Photoshop. And all it is a simple JPEG image. And you'll notice now what I do is I'm changing the last, so I can zoom the last in and out, and I can also modify the image itself, so I can scale the image up and down, and I'm trying to get a good fit between the designer's sketch and the last itself. Okay, when I'm happy with the location, I can say accept, and that image is now in the system and it's ready to sketch onto. You'll notice if I rotate the last, the sketch disappears, but we've added that into the menu so I can very quickly get back. Now, as well as being able to keep that JPEG image kind of in front of the last for sketching purposes, I can also wrap that image onto the last. You can see there I've now wrapped it straight onto the last itself, and this is often an easier start point to go from. Okay, so once that image is either in 2D form or 3D form, I can then use my style line curves to start to sketch straight through the image and create a style line curve. So you can see here, just sketching around the edges of this region. When I get to the first point, the curve will automatically close. I can touch on the feather edge and the curve is automatically created straight from the feather edge. Okay, like so. In fact, let me just do that one again. Okay, so we can snap straight onto the feather edge, and the cursor turns blue when we close down on the feather edge itself, indicating that we're touching on the feather edge itself. Okay, let me just turn off the sketch for a moment, and I'll draw the other style lines. So all the other style lines needed for this design I've actually got stored on another level because we don't have time to create all of these in the demonstration. So there's all the style curves that I need to create my complex design. So what do I do next with these? Move forward to the pieces activity, and here we now start to chain together all of the style line curves until we get a closed region where ShoeMaker will create the 3D piece. And this piece has properties like thickness, texture on the inside, on the outside, on the edge, and it also has an offset from the last. So I've made a single closed piece there. I'm going to use the curve I sketched on the inside to cut a hole in that piece. Like so. So that's a single piece. Again, come back to my shoe piece construction. I actually want something in the centre there, so again I can click that. Again, that's another piece created. And again, I want a third piece. We have another method of constructing shoe pieces. With the left mouse button, I can click in the centre region, and ShoeMaker Pro will search all around until it finds the closed region where the shoe piece is to go. So here I've now got 3 shoe pieces. If I now change the library to the materials library, You can see here I've got pages and pages of different materials I can apply to my design. I can simply drag and drop these from the library onto the part, and the part will update. Now I've actually got some materials created here for this particular design. So this outer part is to be blue. This inner part I want to adopt this kind of spotty material, and the part here I've got a grey material I'm going to adopt. Okay, so let me just turn on the level with the other pieces, because all of the other parts for the design I have created. Again, it would take too long for my 10-minute slot to create all of these. So you can see there we've got lots of complex pieces that have been created. I have one more that I have to create at the collar region at the back of the design. So again, I can use the single click method to create that piece. And once that's created, we can apply different effects to the pieces. So in this case here, I'm going to convert this into a padded piece. So I'm now reselecting the piece and we'll apply a padding effect to it, which you can see there. If I now look from the side, you can see the bulging effect that we've applied to simulate padding of this part. And again, come to the materials and I'll drag and drop the material onto the part itself. Okay, so all of my shoe pieces have been created. So the next thing we'll do is move along in the activity lists to stitches. Now I can create stitches in a couple of different ways. The first method I'm going to use is by creating stitches from an offset curve. So I've just come back to the curve that I created initially and made a 1mm offset. So I can either make stitches, I can make stitches in 3 different ways. I can make them from sketching, I can make them from an existing curve, which I'll do here. So I can select the stitching type, once again from the library, and I can then select an existing curve. You can see the stitch pattern is created for me following the curve that I've selected. Now these stitches are fully 3D, so if your design is intended for use with rapid prototyping, then you can get a proper 3D stitch effect from these stitches because they are 3D shapes. Now again, I'm just going to change the colour of this. I'm going to adopt a grey material for this stitch, and also I can change the separation between the stitches, I can change the size, I can change the material, etc. to get the stitches looking exactly as I want. Now another very common method of applying stitches is to the edge of a part, which I can do simply by using the third option here. So if I pick the shoe piece that I wish to apply those stitches to, pick the edges that I want them to be applied to. ShoeMaker shows me first of all a preview of the stitches, and then the stitches are created after I accept them. And then I can copy and paste materials and other properties from one stitch to another. Now again, I've got all of the other stitches already created on this part because it would take me too long to create them in the demonstration. So the next creation activity is piping, and once again, if I come down to the library, we have a series of different piping cross-sectional shapes that we can apply to our designs. And again, we can either sketch pipes or we can apply pipes to existing curves. So here I'm going to apply piped edges to these region where the laces will go. It actually goes all the way around the top part of the design. And again, I'll copy an existing colour from a part to my pipe, like so. So here we've applied this piping effect all the way around the top edge of the design. The next creation entity is a punch, and again we have libraries of punches, so different punch shapes, triangular shapes, round shapes, square shapes, etc. And again I can create punches either from an existing curve or by sketching, so here I'll create them by sketching. Punches are lines of decorative holes that are applied to the design. And the way we use these is initially I just sketch the geometry for the punch. So what I'm doing here is sketching a row of holes, and at the moment this is just geometry. Now once I've sketched the punches, again I can change the separation, I can change the physical size of the holes until they look correct, and then I can instruct ShoeMaker about how I want those punches to be used. So are these to go all the way through to the last, or are they just to punch through the first layer of material, which is what I've done here. So now we actually have these holes. And again, if you're constructing this design for rapid prototyping purposes, these are proper holes that will appear in the design. So moving forward to the next creation activity, which is accessories. And again, I'll open up the library for accessories, and you can see we've got pages of eyelets and lugs and buckles, different shapes that we can apply to our designs. And again, I can either add these on an existing curve, or I could sketch them. So let me say I'm going to sketch a row of accessories, and I've selected an eyelet accessory, just to give you an idea. And again, we can change the separation values, I can increase the size, I can rotate these around, okay, to get them exactly as I want them. Okay, so let me delete those. I actually want to apply these lugs. So again, I'm going to sketch the lugs on both sides of the design. Let me change that for a second. Okay, so that's where I want my lugs to go. I can drag and drop designs from the library onto an existing set of accessories. I can then select the accessories, increase the separation to give me 5 lugs, increase the size of those, like so. If I want these on the opposite side of the design, instead of repeating that operation, I can make a linked mirror. Now with a linked mirror, if we edit one side, the other side will also edit, so I can break the link, because on this side, I actually want to adjust the orientation. So I'm just going to spin these all around. Now here, if I turn on another level, you can see I do have a rather complex sports sole already added onto the bottom of this design. But what I'm going to do is to go through into advanced mode to make some edits to this. So in advanced mode, I can now start to make changes to the sole. So for instance, I could select this region at the back of the sole, and I could make an edit operation to it. So first of all, I'm just going to select a set of points. So I'm just entering some values that allow me to select a pattern of points on this surface, which you can see on the screen now, and I'll then perform an edit operation on those points. So the edit I'll perform is an offset. I'm going to offset just the selected points inwards, and that will give this kind of rippled effect. Again, if I just undo and redo. Okay, so we can do obviously direct surface editing. Now, another thing we may want to do is to change the tread pattern. So here I could select some of the existing tread and delete it, and then select the region where that tread went and maybe apply a separate tread pattern. So ShoeMaker allows the ability for the users to construct flat sheets of tread pattern. And these flat sheets of tread pattern can be simply created maybe in ArtCam or in PowerShape or even in ShoeMaker. They can then be stored in a library area and very quickly wrapped onto the sole of the design. So you can see here I've got an angled shoe texture. Here we get the ability to adjust the size and position of the texture, and then finally ShoeMaker will wrap that texture onto the bottom region of the sole. So a bit like the demonstration I gave you with the skate where we created the logo in ArtCam, this is using very similar functionality in ShoeMaker, except in this case we're applying materials or textures to the bottom of the shoe sole. Now again, I'm going to change the colour, and you can see there if I zoom in, that's actually triangle tread texture. It's 3D texture, and ShoeMaker has closed off all the edges where any texture falls off the side, so that is fully RP ready. And let me repeat this operation on the opposite side, so maybe we wanted a different texture on this side. So again, I can go through the same wizard process, but this time I'll load in from my library a separate texture with a different pattern on it. Again, walk through the wizard process where I can preview the checkerboard pattern to manage the distortions. I can see a preview of the location of the texture, and finally choose the height and the trimming options, and ShoeMaker will wrap that texture onto the bottom of the sole for me. And again, if I just copy the material properties across, you can see we very quickly changed the design and applied 2 very complex tread patterns in doubly curved regions of the shoe. Okay, so I've finished in my advanced edits, and I can return to ShoeMaker like so, where I've got one final operation to show you, which is where I can apply a logo. So let me just undraw the last and undraw the star lines. So we might want a Delcam logo on this part of the tongue, for instance. So again, I can load in the logo initially. So here we have a Delcam logo. I can use the editing tools to change the position and the orientation of the logo. So I can pan drop this into position like so, and then finally wrap that logo onto the surface. And if I wanted to, also I could eliminate the background. So I could say in this case the white is not needed. And you can see there's our Delcam logo wrapped onto complex sports shoe design. Now, as Graham mentioned, we've been doing soles for a long time, and we've been doing uppers for a long time. ShoeMaker Pro allows you to bring the complexity of both together in one single package, and we're the only CAD/CAM supplier that can do this to this level of complexity.